In a stunning move, the NFL suspended Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson for 11 games following sexual misconduct allegations. The three-time Pro Bowler will be benched for more than half the season and will have to pay a $5 million fine. That is the largest penalty of its kind in NFL history. However, some critics argue that this new punishment is merely a slap on the wrist. So joining me now is former Minnesota Vikings general manager and CBS Sports NFL analyst, Rick Spielman. Thanks so much for joining us. And let's talk about, I hope everything's good, right? The wires are all good? Can you hear us?
There we go. Maybe not.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Technical. While he's pulling it together, we'll sort of remind people that his initial punishment was much, much lower than that.
6 games.
6 games, right. And then
it was a financial penalty, but it's
the commissioner was like, we want him gone for the whole season, right? Was that what he said?
Yeah. Or at least 15 games or 16 games. He wanted a harsher penalty than the original 6 games. And he got into it with the NFL Players Union or the union for Deshaun Watson. And all of a sudden, through the negotiations, we now came up with this ruling that says it's 15 games and $5 million. All
right. So I think Rick is all set to go. We can bring him back in. Oh, there you go, Rick. Good to see you and hear you. And, you know, you're well adjusted, and we appreciate that. So let's talk about this. First off, the 11-game suspension and the $5 million fine. Do you think that's enough?
Yeah, you know, I thought for sure it was going to be a year suspension. And when you've seen the fine of $5 million, that's significant. I think that's the largest fine ever given out to an NFL player. But the allegations that have gone on, I thought for sure there'd be a year suspension, and that's why the NFL ended up appealing the decision of Judge Robinson. But I know the NFL and the NFLPA came together. They came up with an agreement, and I don't believe either side is going to be happy, and there's going to be a lot of people disappointed in how this turned out. But they felt that it was fair on their side as well as the NFLPA side.
You know, as we pointed out, as you know, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell originally called for a 1-year suspension, but then the negotiations with the union, ultimately we got what we got. And what I find absolutely fascinating is that in his statement Deshaun Watson released, he said that he was taking accountability for the decisions I made, right? But then when he was standing in front of the press and doing interviews with the press, he says, I'm going to continue to stand on my innocence. Just because settlements and things like that happen doesn't mean that a person is guilty of anything. I mean, what is he trying to say here? It doesn't sound, when you hear, I wish we had played Jonathan Vigliotti's report on this, because the women in his report, some of them are deeply traumatized by what they went through and what they allege he did to them. And so for him to say that he stands by the responsibility of his actions, but when he's talking to the press, he says, I did nothing wrong, sends a very strange message.
Yeah, and, you know, not that I'm psychoanalyzing this, but when he said that, is he talking about his actions on going and getting, what was it, 66 different massage therapists? What was he actually saying? Or was he actually apologizing to the victims of this? And then you hear him go out in the press conference and still claim his innocence. Now, I don't know if he's getting advice from his lawyer, because 23 of the 24 lawsuits have been settled, but there's still 1 remaining, and I don't know how many potentially could come back and still happen. So maybe his lawyers are giving him that advice, but he is really contradicting himself. And then you have to wonder, when you listen to him talk, is he truly remorseful of everything that has happened and what he put these women through?
I mean, I'm stunned sort of that he still has a job. And I understand these are civil settlements. There weren't charges filed, none of that sort of stuff. But I just think, you know, similar circumstances in a different industry, perhaps, a company would have parted ways with an employee that problematic. Or perhaps if, you know, he wasn't the quarterback. What does this mean for the NFL going forward?
Well, you have to look at the contract, because when you go back and Cleveland made this decision to make this trade, and they gave unbelievable amount of compensation to get him as a quarterback, and I'm just looking at it purely from a football standpoint right now, and a fully guaranteed a $230 million contract that was never given before. But the other thing, too, is you look at the first year of the contract, it was almost minimum wage. So were they anticipating that he was going to get some kind of suspension? And when you look at the total fine thing, it was $5 million, but it's going to be about $600,000. So if they didn't levy that fine of $5 million, he would have been fined for only the games that he missed, which was roughly around $600,000. But I think because this is a new process in the new CBA, and the NFL agreed to a neutral or separate party as a disciplinary officer. And when Judge Robinson listened to this case, and she did say that he was a predator, that it was non-violent sexual assault, that he did not show remorse. So those were things that gave the commissioner in the NFL, I think, ability to appeal this decision, and then why eventually we came up with 11 games and $5 million. But even listening to the ownership and when their press conference yesterday, and Jimmy Haslam talking about giving guys second chances, they know that he was in the wrong. And Dee Haslam, his wife, talking about, it takes time when you go through counseling. It just doesn't happen overnight. And you have to be patient as we go through this process, and all these funds going to the prevention and education of sexual misconduct and sexual assault. So I think they know and believe that he was in the wrong on this, but yet they still elected to go and make this trade and have him be the face of the franchise going forward. Right. But from the NFL and NFLPA standpoint, it'll be interesting to see if another case comes up like this, what they learn from this case and how will they move forward.
Rick, there are some people, fans, who are watching what's happening with the NFL, and they're pointing to, for example, the penalty for Calvin Ridley, who gambled on football and was completely suspended for an entire season, and pointing to this and saying there are 11 women who have alleged sexual assault by this player, and he isn't even suspended for the entire season. And they're sort of looking at this and saying, what is the message that the NFL is trying to send? I understand that in the case of Ridley, there are very, very specific rules in the league about gambling, and that the personal conduct policy of the NFL is a little bit more ambiguous, and that is what lawyers are going to say, right? We get the legal argument here. But for the fans who are like, come on, like, this dude gambled, that's wrong, he admitted it, he actually never said that he didn't do it. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is when the NFL is going to say we have to protect the shield and we have to protect the integrity of the game, because if there is gambling going on by players or front office or coaches, and that's affecting the games on Sunday, then what does the NFL stand for? The other, issue is there's pretty significant penalty if a player takes a PED or some kind of steroid to help him enhance his performance. That's going to affect the games on Sunday. So the difference is, and whether you agree or disagree, I'm just talking about the facts, is that a gambling situation or a PED situation has an immediate impact on what's happening on that field. And the NFL cannot afford to have their games compromised by gambling or by PEDs or any other pretty solid thing that has solid consequences, where personal conduct, which is awful, what we're dealing with right now, and I feel horrible for the women that had to go through this, but is that really impacting games like it would gambling? And that's just a cold, hard fact that I think they deal with.
Yeah, I should point out that it's 11-game suspension, but it's more than 11 women that have come forward alleging the sexual assault. That was a number on my part. Rick, thank you so much for, exactly. It's actually horrific when you hear what they say happened to them. Rick, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.